All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating sources, looking at something pretty huge, how the actual possibility of sin could be completely removed,
Hmm.
leading to, perfected free will and this idea of eternal peace. Our goal here is to figure out how these texts see love and obedience shaping, well, everything.
Yeah, the ultimate destiny of creation, really.
Exactly. So, where do these sources kick things off? It seems like they start with the problem itself, the potential for sin.
Right.
They talk about creatures needing to witness the really bad outcomes of disobedience. They actually experience it. Some texts call it the horror of Hades. Pretty dramatic stuff.
It is dramatic, but the point seems less about just fear and more about like a deep understanding dawning on them.
Okay.
It's this realization, maybe, that true happiness, real flourishing, it comes from being aligned with divine love, not fighting against it.
So not just knowing the rules, but getting why they exist.
Exactly. Through these cycles, these experiences of judgment and then salvation or grace, the misunderstandings about God's nature, his commands, his love, they get cleared up. And that understanding becomes so deep, the sources suggest that the actual desire to sin just evaporates.
Okay, that shift from just understanding consequences to losing the will to sin, that sounds massive. But what's the catalyst? Is it just seeing the bad stuff?
No, not entirely. The sources really zero in on the cross. That's presented as the absolute undeniable proof of God's love.
The whole while we were still sinners idea.
Precisely that. Christ died for us even then. It's shown as this just overwhelming act of love that naturally inspires love back in return. It's not forced.
So it's that love, that unearned love, that really drives the change. Because the sources link loving God directly to keeping his commandments, don't they?
They do. It's very clear. Loving God leads to obedience.
Yeah.
And that love, as they put it, is the fulfillment of the law. It's not about rule following for its own sake.
It's relational.
Right. It's about the relationship. And Christ's love, they argue, compels believers. It makes them want to live for him, not for themselves. It fundamentally changes their motivation.
Okay, so this leads to a kind of fork in the road then. What happens based on accepting or rejecting this love? How does that play out in terms of freedom and sin?
Well, the cross becomes that dividing line. For those who accept that love, the path leads to obedience, which then, according to these texts, eliminates the possibility of future sin. And that leads to eternal life.
Right.
But they also stress the flip side. The wages of sin is death. Yet embracing this love for God and for your neighbor too, that's what overcomes death.
And there's a specific event mentioned, right? Something about proving this is possible, the first resurrection.
Yes, that's crucial. The resurrection of these martyr witnesses is presented as the concrete, tangible proof. Like, look, it can be done. Humans can overcome death through love and obedience.
So it removes doubt.
Exactly. It shows it's feasible, it's real. And by removing that doubt about God and his ways, it perfects free will. The choice to sin isn't just rejected. It becomes unthinkable, undesirable for those who've seen the truth demonstrated.
Wow. Okay. So this all builds towards a huge culmination. There's talk of timelines, like a sixth day ending, leading into a seventh day, 1,000 years without deception.
That's the framework some sources use, a transition period into clarity.
The ultimate end game after all this.
It's described as a complete renewal, a new heaven and new earth. The old order, with all its potential for sin and suffering, is gone.
Burned away, literally.
That's the imagery used, yeah. Making way for something totally new where, as the text describe it, there's no more death, no sorrow, no crying, no pain. God dwelling directly with people, life flowing freely.
So sin is just gone, eradicated from space-time, total peace, total harmony, and free will is perfected because everyone chooses love.
That's the vision, which, brings up a really interesting question to maybe leave you with. If this ultimate goal is a creation where sin isn't even possible anymore, and free will finds its perfection in love, what does that tell us about what true freedom really is? What hits you when you think about a future where love is the only law and disobedience isn't even on the table?